Welcome to I Hope This Helps. We have an exciting guest here, Danielle Coyle. Danielle, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a realtor with Remax Select I cover Monmouth Ocean County.
Okay.
I've been a licensed real estate agent. Technically, I got my license in 1991.
Okay.
So my mom was a realtor. And as soon as I graduated, actually, as soon as I turned 18, she's like, you got to go get your real estate license. And that was in Hudson County in Secaucus.
Nice.
I finished college. I had my real estate license. Right after college, I went into her office to like work part time or just get a feel for it. And I realized at that age, I couldn't relate to helping people buy and sell homes. And it was different. Like, it wasn't like how we see real estate nowadays, with HGTV. It was you're in an office, it was the MLS books, there were no computers, there was nothing like very glamorous about real estate, I would say at that time. So I thought it was like the most boring job on the face of the earth. I was like, what is going on here? It was a bunch of ladies smoking cigarettes in their office waiting for the next client to walk in. And I was just getting my feet wet. I didn't even have enough business experience. Never mind being able to relate to the process of buying and selling. And I was, mostly doing rentals, but I was still living at home, so I didn't get it. So I went out into the corporate world and got my business experience, got married, had a family. And it wasn't until I was actually selling semiconductors.
Really?
So a completely different world. So it was like in 2000 when the whole dot-com crash, that industry changed a little bit. I just had my second daughter. I took a leave of absence from work, and I was just in the process of buying my third home. I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll do this real estate thing part-time. And this is 15 years later.
Oh, wow.
And I was bought a house in Monmouth County, and I actually loved it. And I was like, wow, this is, I could relate to it. I was buying and selling my own homes, but I had it in the back of my head. I had it in my blood. And I never went back to the corporate world. I winded up, obviously sticking with the real estate. So I went back full time right around 2004.
Okay. So I got a question.
Yeah.
You were originally from, you said Hudson County or Bergen County?
Hudson County.
Hudson County. Okay. So when you started real estate, did you start up there or did you always go into Monmouth County and you started your roots there?
So I started technically in Hudson County, but then that's when I left. I was still young, and that's when I went into the corporate world. So when I came back into real estate, I just moved to Monmouth County.
Okay.
And that's, I feel like that's when I became a realtor.
Okay.
So it's really, even though I know Hudson County very well, Monmouth and Ocean County is where I focus all my business.
Okay, understood. I just thought maybe being,
Yeah.
from that area,
Yeah.
you had your roots, you had your mom's business
Yep.
maybe, carried it over and you would have went there and didn't transition, but you went right there and said, hey, I'm going to do this on my own. You're going to farm this area
Yeah.
and you ran with it, correct?
Correct. And I didn't know a single soul either. So even though I had family, in real estate and had a real estate background, I just started completely on my own. And I was like, I could do this, thinking it was going to be so simple. And I was like in shock. I was like, wait, this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. I thought the corporate world was hard. But I did it was important to me. I had two young kids. I wanted to be part of a community. I wanted to learn the community, learn people. I was like a sponge. I wanted to walk into every single house. I was so excited. And I think, I took my corporate background and my corporate experience and then my zest for seeing real estate in a completely different perspective than I've ever seen in my life. I had a different appreciation for the career, for the business. And I went in thinking I was just going to do this part-time and then go back to my corporate world. I was a sales manager covering New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, flying all over, selling semiconductors. I basically had an engineering background on top of a sales background. So these were completely, I was dealing with engineers versus dealing with, moms and dads and homeowners.
Okay, so 2004. So
Yeah.
how did you farm your area? What did you do? Was it door knocking?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
So I did at that time, everything was like floor time
Okay.
and open houses. I did do farming as far as mailings. I did like try to reach out to, I was so eager to meet people. So I got to know people like between school and mom groups and going to the gym. And I never said, at least I was able to not say like I'm a brand new realtor, because I did have that background and experience, but I really did feel like a brand new realtor. I kind of faked it a little bit. I had business background. I had my real estate license for a long time, but I really wasn't practicing real estate. So I started all over, teaching myself, learning online, going to as many classes as I possibly can, humanly possible. So as far as farming goes, at that time, it was just a ton of, I begged to do open houses. So, and I did a really good job for the agents. When I did an open house, I did everything that you would want to do. Send out mailers, do the door knocking, be present, have the comps, know everything about that house possible. So that's how really I got my business. And I felt I did better face to face. I didn't like cold calling. I hated it. To me, it was kind of like public speaking. Like I'd rather faint and die. Picking. I don't know why I was so scared of like bothering people. I guess hated cold calling, but I felt face to face. They can see I'm a real person. I'm professional. I just did better that way. So open houses and floor time were the thing then.
Move forward. Now we're doing podcasts, huh?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No more floor time. And now everything is the internet. And, I remember the internet just starting to happen with real estate. And I was so like, I wanted to know everything about it. I was like trying to figure out how do I get internet leads? And it was an exciting time. There was a lot of trial and error as a realtor. I mean, I wasted a lot of money, trying to be out there on the internet. I thought I can have my own website. And then you realized you were competing with like all the big names. Like I would Google myself and Google, I don't even know if it was Google at the time. I would search myself and, I'm like, but why is Caldwell Banker coming up first? And then Zillow started coming out. And I was like, to get that SEO, I didn't understand at that time when things were just starting to happen.
In many ways, things still haven't changed when it comes to that aspect. With
I
the bigger
know, you're
players.
always testing. I mean, I'm still always testing. I think I do fall for that shiny penny sometimes, and it's been a long time, but I do like to test out different forms of getting, new business and meeting people. Like, you never know what,
Exactly.
where your next client's coming from.
Of course not. And they always say people that are in sales can be sold a lot quicker.
Oh gosh, I believe that. That's me. I
Think
want to
about the shiny
listen.
penny. Me too.
I'd like to listen to, what they're trying to sell me. But I've become a lot more astute on, asking questions and understanding if I'm going to be giving them money, what am I getting from it?
Of course.
And not wasting money, ending it sooner than later.
Yeah, the ROI is important, right? All right, so I gather that you're really big in education, and I got to talk to you a little bit before we started.
Yeah.
And you're always talking about, bettering yourself through podcasts and everything like that. And now let's fast forward. Today's market, right? And a newer agent. They're not going to do the floor times. Nobody
Right.
really does that anymore.
Right.
What are you teaching them how to farm? Or how do you farm now compared to back then?
So I really how I said before, I hated cold calling. I mean, it is truly important to have a presence on the phone. I mean, I have the confidence now. Most of my calls are in cold. I'm not just going in a phone book, but there is a lot of follow up on the phone with people you haven't met. So They do need the skills in order to call. I would give a new agent on my team a good amount of warm leads, like, hey, these people are looking for a house, they're searching. It's not like you're talking to someone in the supermarket out of the blue buying, a pound of ham and asking them if they want to buy a house. So they do need the phone skills. The other thing for the new agents, I'd like to tell them to go with their strengths. If it's a younger agent and they love social media, I've seen businesses. It's not my business. I don't believe I'm getting all my business from social media, but I have seen agents get all their business from social media. If that is what you are good at, double down on what that is. There's plenty of open houses to meet people face to face too. It's a great source, of farming that is, sweat equity. It doesn't cost you anything to do an open house, technically. If it's an agent on my team and they're doing an open house for me, I'm paying for all of the advertising. I did the hard work to get the listing. Be there and be really present with these buyers. If they're taking their time out in today's day and age to walk into a house, they're looking for information. So, I think that's, probably one of the best sweat equity. And also, social media doesn't cost anything. It really doesn't. So, if you could double down on those, I think a new agent should be able to be pretty successful.
Okay, and you said you gave your team warm leads. Where are you gathering these warm leads from?
So I do a lot of, I still love, learning everything about the internet and SEO. So I do a lot of advertising, as far as my websites, getting websites out there. So warm leads to my team would be, we do have some paid Zillow leads, would be anything that we're doing, anything that I'm advertising on the internet that's bringing it back to my website. So I do get a lot of phone calls. And not just website hits, but actual phone calls from my website. And I think it all ties in together, from between, everything goes back to your website, right? So social media, even my print advertising, which is, I'm very consistent with my farming and my mailings. And, everything goes back to the website. So most of that business I will give to newer agents.
No, very nice. Very nice.
To help. And that's basically how I started a team. You get to a point, if you're doing really well, is that, all of a sudden you have business that, there's only 24 hours in a day. And, most of us can't work 24, you got to sleep. But, if I started seeing myself being able to not handle some of the business that was coming in, or I wasn't able to service it to the level that I know this client needs to be serviced, and I was handing it to newer agents or other agents in the office, and that's eventually how the team started.
So that's awesome. A lot of people don't give out leads and all that. You're doing that, right? Comes to a cost to you. In my experience, when things are free for other people, they don't work them as hard as they should,
Right.
right? Because they have no skin in the game. How do you feel about that?
It's very true. It's tough. It is tough with newer agents with any agent. It doesn't even have to be a newer agent. But yes, this is something that I worked really hard to be able to bring this lead in. 20 years technically of working, of getting your name out there with consistent advertising. Advertising, it used to be in the local newspaper and mailings, and now we're all on social media and YouTube. It is the only way, I think, is to hold them accountable, is to really, really push the accountability piece of it. And that's, to let them understand how important that is, because it's a tough business out there right now.
It really is. So accountability, we were actually talking about that right
Yeah.
before. I'm big on that. Now, how big's your team?
So there's 11 of us right now, and
wow.
2 new agents. So it has grown. It started with 2 part-time.
Okay. So 11 agents.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about your leadership. Like, how do you enlist your core values to your team? Yeah.
So I started, being an agent. Like I said, that's just kind of evolved naturally. And I've always been in a leadership type role. And my role really came from wanting to make sure my clients are serviced properly by, sharing the business and sharing the leads, and also wanting to teach people. When I first started, oh my gosh, it was so hard. I didn't know anybody. I started in a new, in an office in a town, and I was kind of young. I was in a Caldwell Banker office. I was one of the younger agents in my 30s at that time. Now there's a lot more agents in their 20s, but it really wasn't that way. But to try to get an experienced agent to give you the time of day was not easy. And I found it really hard, like finding a mentor, someone who would help me. And and this was before Teams became popular. And so I felt that like compassion, I guess, when a newer agent came in, because I remember how I felt. Even though I had business experience, I had somewhat of a real estate experience, it was really hard, and it is lonely. You're in an office. Technically, you're competing with every agent in that office. So they're not really looking to share information as much or help a new agent. It's rare to find. So I took on that role of helping these newer agents. And then, this is the team model started, becoming more prevalent. There were no teams at the time in my office, and I started the first team. So I've always taken on that role of helping to grow, educate, and mentor people on the team to help them be successful. I truly know and believe that there's plenty of business out there. I enjoy seeing them do well. I enjoy sharing the business. There's only so many, so much business and so many clients I can handle. So when someone on my team takes on a client and does well and is successful in it, it's rewarding for me. And I'm more of that, that type of role. They need the accountability, which I know is really important. So I have some systems in place for that. So I think I'm maybe a little too nurturing, but that is,
Some mother in you, I guess.
we have it is, but we have a really nice team. Like there's never, any issues or arguing or fighting or, people all are on the team, enjoy each other and want to see each other do well.
And very important question. How do you vet them out? Because I believe time is the most valuable asset we have, right?
Right.
And certain people, as much as good as you have in
Right.
mind and you're doing your best for them, they don't appreciate it or they really don't follow through. Like, how do you manage that? Because at the end of the day, you're still running a business that feeds your family, correct?
Right. Correct. And so if I'm taking too much time to help someone, I can't want the business for them more than they want it. And I do see that sometimes where, I think there is a little bit of a delusion of too much watching Instagram and HGTV type of shows where they think this real estate business is glamorous and you don't really see, $1 million listing. I heard that it takes a year to produce, like sometimes, and some of those episodes are for, one of these deals to happen. That's not, real life. And I think that people do have a little bit of a delusion of what goes on and how hard the work truly is and how uncomfortable it is sometimes. It's not easy to tell someone face to face. You have to give the bad news just as good as you got to give the good news that their house smells, their house is dirty, their house is overpriced, whatever that situation is. But you have to come in and, you're there to help them, and you have to realize that and that they need your help.
Hold on, I'm laughing here. You said the house smells, right?
Yeah.
So there must have been a situation you walked into for you to say that.
Yeah.
So give us an example of not so glamorous part of your business.
There's a real lot. I like the last 2 days, helped. And sometimes like this is, in an elderly adult community, but helping with like the decluttering, 5,000 photos of the grandkids and every little tchotchke lined up on the windowsill. That's great, but not for real estate photography and selling a house. So I do come from that, that place of I'm here to help you get top dollar. And then I do offer for a lot of people, and I learn this so I don't insult anyone, a cleaning service. So, I mean, some houses don't need it, but some do. So when it does, I'm like, listen, we want your home to sparkle. There can't be any odor, pet odors. We need it to smell fresh. I have to come from that place of expertise and honesty to say this is what needs to be done for the showings, or we're going to be a little frustrated, or we're going to have to price it price it accordingly. So that I haven't had someone who doesn't get it or doesn't understand, and I explain that in a very diplomatic, professional way. But yeah, there's some ethnic smells, there's some pet smells, some houses are smelly, and it's a turnoff. And I have to explain to a seller that listen, they don't even realize it, but in the back of their head, that they're forming an opinion about your home. This is psychologically, and it's proven before they even walk in the door. So that's why the front door needs to be, presented properly. And it does. It needs to smell good and be clean and not over, deodorized with air fresheners. But there's certain things that we need to maybe work on. And sometimes it is pets, And you have to say, listen, you and the pets may have to leave for the weekend. And if you want top dollar, and every house at the right price is sellable. And there are many homes that, that won't get it to that real estate photography or showing capability, but there's another market out there. I work with a ton of investors. So this is the investor price, and this is the open market price.
Okay. So obviously you just showed your expertise, the attention to detail, the education, and everything. What's going on in your market right now?
It's a tough market right now in Monmouth County. I mentioned that because the inventory is extremely, extremely low. But even though the inventory is low, there is a trend. People overpricing houses, they're not selling overpriced either. So it's a tough balance because you may be the only game in town, but if you're overpriced, buyers are not putting in an offer. They're overlooking the house, and I know that from both sides of the coin, from working with buyers and also being on the listing side. When you have something that's slightly overpriced, you feel it. You can tell the difference. You could tell the difference in the feedback. You could tell the difference in the showing activity. The better the house is priced, the better that feedback is. When you start getting negative feedback, it's just not priced properly.
Everybody believes their home is $1 million, right? So how's that conversation when you go to them and it's like, hey, I know you swear your house is $1 million, but comps tell us differently. Here's a rehab that was just done, completely gutted, beautiful, same square footage, same within a mile. It just sold for $750. Yours is worth maybe $700. How do you go about that?
Every day. I actually have, and sometimes you're dealing with friends and family who you really want the best price for them humanly possible. Like you really are like tied into, and I'm like, I don't want to see this because I want $1 million for you. Like I even have to step back and look at the facts. Like, yeah, it should be worth $1 million, but I'm a little surprised today because the comps are not bringing us to $1 million. And these are the facts. As much as I thought maybe your house would be worth $1 million. I want you to get $1 million, but look at what is on the market. Look at just went under contract and look at what's sold. They're bringing us more towards a number under 9. And you can't deny the facts. I've tried, earlier in my career, and there's been times where I may have like tried to deny the facts, like this house has to be worth $1 million. And it doesn't work. The facts are the facts, and you really, I come from that position. And sometimes, there are times that you have a seller that won't see it and we have a different conversation. This is where the numbers are bringing us to. This is what the list price, should be. If we list over this price, we are most likely not going to get as many showings or offers within the first 2 weeks. And, just be mindful that we're going to have to adjust very quickly. So sometimes you'll see on the market, and I like to show those examples. I'd like to show, like, this house sold at $1 million, but they listed it at $859, and they got multiple offers. Showing those facts and also showing what happens when you're listing it high and it's sitting and then there's a price reduction. So all of those numbers are there in black and white, but you do get people who don't want to look at those numbers, and you have to have that conversation that this is going to sit and we're going to have to adjust it. The longer the house sits on the market, the less chances you have of getting asking price. So we need to price it right. And you see agents all the time do a price adjustment like within a week. You know why? They got no showings and no offers, or they got a ton of showings and no offers.
It makes a lot of sense. So one more question about the area, and then we can move on to other things, okay? You said Ocean and Monmouth counties. Where do you feel like you get the most bang for your buck in those areas? And, where is, who has the least inventory in those areas right now?
So the least inventory is closest to the shore, right? It really are. It's like, I'm even in shock, what a beach house cost. I actually, that's how I wound up in Monmouth County. I was going down every single weekend looking for a second home, a summer house. When you live outside of the city, I lived in Secaucus, you spend, your time, you feel like you're in the city all the time. You need a little escape. I'm like, okay, I'll stay in Secaucus and maybe, find a beach house. It's tight. They're very it's not very affordable for the regular family to have two homes. There's nothing under $500,000.
Oh no,
nothing.
I feel like there's very little under $1 million right now.
I know. And I'm talking like we're getting further and further away from the beach. Now we're not even a walk, a bike ride. We may be a 10-minute drive. So what happened too, it's always like the Gold Coast, there were some up and coming towns that weren't as nice or not as desirable. Those have already surpassed, there are no more up and coming towns left.
All right, so give me an example of some of those up and coming towns that you speak of.
When I first started, I'm going to say down in Monmouth County 20 years ago, Asbury was up and coming.
Can't touch on there.
Right. And, it was anybody who wanted to invest then, it wasn't it wasn't a town that you're going to have your kids ride around on a bicycle and, feel okay. It was still very much up and coming. Like Bradley Beach, some of the less known beach towns were a little more up and coming. Belmar was they were known for the young crowd, but they weren't really known for the $1 million plus buyer. Now all of that has changed, there are a lot less rentals. There are more people living there full time, especially since COVID. Once that work from home happened, Point Pleasant Beach used to be a lot more affordable. So if you couldn't find something, Monmouth County, Point Pleasant was the the most northern part of Ocean County. Then Seaside was up and coming, right? Now it's already all turned over, all of those beach towns.
I have a contract right now on Sampson Avenue and newer home.
Yeah.
Right? Beautiful. 1-1.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It really is. I've been saying it for a while. I feel like Seaside Heights is becoming the new Asbury. A lot of the developers went down there. in that aspect.
They're knocking down a lot of the hotels that were a little more on like the trashy side because the
It's a nice word
motels,
for it.
and put condos. I mean, and you have to understand, like Seaside Heights is surrounded by some really nice beach towns. You know, you have Lavalette, you have Ortley. Seaside Park is like being in a completely different area than Seaside Heights, and then the Seaside Heights area now is all new construction. So a lot of these up and coming beach towns are already up and came, I guess you would say.
It's true.
So that area has very low inventory, that second home market, because my clients are you have a big group. You have investors who now Airbnb is like the Uber and the Instacart. You could put your home on and people are booking online, very easily. That makes it so easy for an investor. So we have a big investor group and they're getting top dollar for these rentals. Because there's very little hotels, I don't think people realize, down at the Jersey Shore. There aren't many hotels. Like, not even every town has a hotel.
No, a lot of people just go back and forth because that's what they can
Right.
afford now.
Right.
It's
They
crazy.
go back and forth. And so as far as rentals, you have investors doing rentals. Then you have what I call like the downsize market. More North Jersey or New York City, people want to still keep their home there. They want to buy a second home, down the shore, but their goal is to eventually have it as their primary home. So they are looking for a nice home in walking distance, and these are your $1 million, plus buyers, or they just sold their home, on an acre of land somewhere else in New Jersey, and they want to be closer to the beach. They want to be at their vacation home. They want to travel more, so they want less maintenance because most of these homes near the beach are 50 by 100 lots if you're lucky. So you're not dealing with like the landscaping and the house. It's a little different, and people may be downsizing in size, but they're not all downsizing in price. So
Makes sense.
you're selling $1 million home, but they want to take that money and buy $1 million beach house. But I've noticed too, like taxes in North Jersey, some of these clients are paying $20,000, $30,000 in taxes, and now you're talking $10,000 in taxes. So they're downsizing in different ways.
Yeah. The only downfall, taxes are definitely a lot better there, but the flood insurance definitely will get you on the other
Right.
end, right?
Right.
In that aspect. And it's funny about the Airbnb. I actually own a home in Seaside Park.
Okay.
So when I bought my home, now both sides of neighbors came over to me and said, "Hey, I heard you're in the real estate business. Are you gonna be renting this?" I'm like, "No, this is just for my family." They're like, "Are you Airbnb-ing it? Like, please let us know." I'm like, "I'm telling you, I promise you,
Yeah.
I'm not. This is for my family. I grew up down here, like, in the summers. I love it down here and everything like that because the house across the street from me, they Airbnb it and they're getting like $6,000 to $8,000
I know.
a week.
I know.
That's-
It's some nice money.
It really is.
Yeah, there's
I'm having second thoughts.
there's a yeah, no, well, there's
I'm
a good
kidding.
business in that. And even, it's really nice what I tell clients too, like, I get it. This is your home. You want your family, your friends, you want to create memories. Like, once you have a beach house, the grandkids want to come all the time, the kids want to come, the friends. It's such a nice way to stay connected, and people love just being free and being at the shore and enjoying their summers and relaxing. But if you ever have that moment where you want to go to Europe for a month or do something else, you always have that option of renting it for a month, even renting it for 2 weeks, and having that pay your taxes for the year.
Yeah, that
Like,
makes
so
sense. I understand it.
it gives that option. Another thing too, as far as investing goes, and even for yourself, I don't know. I mean, people, when I first moved down to the shore, I thought like, oh, it's the boonies, because that's how I remember everything boarded up as a kid. Everything is open all year round now.
I say that all the time. When I was a kid, like after Labor Day, we'd come up north and
Yeah.
it was a ghost town. You wouldn't even think about going down
Never.
there. You'd winterize your house
Yep.
and you were done.
Yep.
Now it's different. Like there's restaurants open, there's everything that's going on. And, my kids, like my son is like, Dad, are we going down the shore? Like, I want to
Right.
go down. Like, oh, okay. And we've got our little restaurant spots that we like and enjoy. And, and sometimes it feels good even in the winter to get down there
Yes,
and get away from
yes.
this bustle over here, like
It's just an
traffic. It's
escape.
different.
Yeah, you still get to like walk on the beach and get in some fresh air, and there's still so much to do. Like things, there's only a few places that like close down for the summer, but for the most part, everything is open and it's vibrant. So we have a huge winter market rental. So if someone is only like in there for the summer, because a lot of times you'll see, especially people with young kids in sports, they have to, they're
Oh,
traveling
yeah,
all
sure.
over. They rent their houses out for the winter, and the winter market is a strong market. It's really the only place in New Jersey, that you could rent your house out for the winter, right? Is that second home market. And you have people who are doing like maybe major construction on their house, building a house. They sold a house and they have nowhere to go and they need 6 months to find something. So they'll go into a winter rental until they figure it out. And a winter rental is a lot less expensive and you're not in an annual lease. So, I think you forget that you have that income you could pull in the winter market.
Oh, yeah, I just learned something
Yeah,
new. Like, hey, hold on.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right, so there's so much. You're awesome, by the way. There's so much I want to get through.
Thank you.
So affordable areas that
Hmm.
you see
Yeah,
where these newer buyers, right,
right.
starting a family.
Yep.
It's tough out there
Really
with these
tough.
prices
Yeah.
and everything like that. We're talking about second homes. A lot of
Yeah.
people, it's difficult,
Right.
right? Unless you find a
Right.
good deal, and good luck with that because everybody wants that good
Right.
deal. Now, a newer family starting, and where's a good area over there, up and coming, or very good that you can raise your
Yeah.
family
So I mean, pretty much almost anywhere in Monmouth and
with
Ocean.
inventory?
Yeah, with inventory in Monmouth, Ocean County. You know, I tell, and I work with a lot of first time home buyers. I love first time home buyers. They're so
Me
excited.
too.
They saved all their money. They truly need your help and your guidance. But it's tough for them. They get outbid a lot. Interest rates are up, inventory is down, prices are up. I see the price of their mortgages, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
They're doing everything they can to just have home ownership. And with that is, to guide them is okay. So further west, the further you get away from the beach,
Of course.
you're going to get more house for your money. That's usually the first part. So, more on the outskirts of town. There are some towns that have a really big inventory right now that may be less desirable for other reasons. So you have to understand what their plan is. Is this your forever home that are really nice? You have like Jackson Township. I just looked on the MLS. I couldn't believe how much inventory is sitting there right now. And there's some that's affordable. They have some other issues going on there with school and school system. So what is their plan? There are some towns that are a little more affordable, but it may not be in the highest ranking school system. Do we want to just like cut the pain of renting and this be the 5-year plan? If it's going to be a town that you want to raise your kids in and it has one of the top rated school systems, we're going to have to cut back on some other things. It may be a fixer-upper. It may be a smaller lot. It's going to be a small house, but you can eventually add on to it. Really educating them of what they can buy for their money and what they're willing to accept and not accept. I had first-time home buyers give up so much, gave up the garage, gave up the basement, went into a 2-bedroom because they wanted a specific township. And then they're like, in 5 years, we can add on and we can do this. Or, we'll eventually be able to upgrade, but we want our roots, in a town that we want to stay in for the rest of our lives. I don't want to be too far from work. I don't want to be too far from my friends and family. Actually, down in Ocean County, I'm seeing more inventory, like the towns that you would really never think of all year round, Beechwood, Forked River, as you go much further down from the Parkway, they're not, they're good for, there's waterfront homes, but they're more for boaters. There isn't technically a beach, so there's little bay beaches, but you would drive, definitely drive to the beach. But then you have inland where you can get an affordable home from like 350 to 550.
Okay.
Where it's not on the water, but it's as you're going further south into Ocean County, past Tom's River, just a little further past.
Okay, so you're talking about Forked River. I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it.
Yeah.
There's a little places called
Yeah, Barnegat, Beechwood, some of those towns, Lacey, and they have, new construction there that is, from 600 to, to a million, but, brand new construction. You could get a really nice townhouse under around 400,000. That's another option for a first-time home buyer too, is, may have to start out in the condo townhouse. And I'm like, and then, ideally you hold on to this and keep it as an investment. But if you need to sell it to buy something else, but it's a great spot, to be able to at least get into home ownership and own something and not paying someone else's mortgage.
Now, this is actually going to take me to my next subject,
Okay.
okay? And technology, right? Technology is great in so many ways, and I want to know what kind of tools you see, where you see the market going with, right? But just by what you just told me, I don't believe technology will ever replace someone like you. Meaning, you know your stuff, the education, having these conversations, the real ones, talking about, listen, yes, I know you want this, but in reality, you can't afford this. But let's take away some of these things. Let's look at this. Let's look at 5-year plan, all those other good things, and that's amazing. But technology is big in everyday aspect of things. What technology are you using now that's making your life a lot easier? And where do you see technology and real estate going in the future?
So I've always embraced technology. I really I enjoy it. I enjoy learning something new. I mean, as a real estate agent, I use everything. I'm like, what don't I use? I use every app I can possibly use, as far
Okay.
as when it comes to photography, when it comes to our MLSs got so robust. You used to be able, to search for a home in MLS. I don't think people realize what we have at our fingertips on the MLS, the type of data. It's what you can do with that data. I mean, if you have the internet, you have the MLS, you have your phone and a camera. I mean, as long as you can embrace that, you don't need, there's really not much more you need. Oh my gosh, there's so many apps out there. Even, with Zoom now, how you can record every single meeting and take notes. I've bought many gadgets. But I'm still like old school where I like to write things. It does something, I know it does, like something in your head and your memory when you're
Same
physically
way.
writing something. I could remember what page it was on, where I was when I wrote that. It does something to your brain. So I embrace technology, but I try to stick with what works. I honestly think people, for the art of knowing your own MLS is so important. You could pull so many stats out of there to show a buyer, to show a seller, because you could say it 1,000 times, but when you can pull those numbers to say, this is how long the homes are sitting on the market, this is how fast they're going. Every single home is selling 2% over asking price. Us putting in an offer under asking price is not going to do it. We may need to change our search parameters. If you can only afford 500, we need to look up to 450 because everything is selling over asking. To be able to aggregate that data and come to them to come to a buyer and a seller with those facts is using your technology.
Okay.
And then where is it going with technology? I have no idea. I mean, it's so much has come about with AI, you know. I'm still learning so much with AI, you know, and I went on as soon as like ChatGPT came on, I was like one of the first people to adopt it. I'm like, this is amazing.
Really is. I love it.
I can't even like I don't know if I want to say all the things I use it for. Like it is truly amazing. I just saw you could take a photo of like if you're in a house, you can take a photo like of the furnace and put it into ChatGPT and we'll give you everything. Like when it, you know, I'm still like, we're looking for the stickers on the furnace to say, oh, how old is this HVAC system? Whether I'm with on a listing and I ask the seller, you want that information to be accurate, and you can, you know, take the barcode off of some of these appliances or things in the home and find out the age of them and everything about them. Like you don't even need the manuals anymore. We'll download the manual for you. So it's helped us so much. As far as that goes, even with home inspections, like some of these home inspectors have some pretty handy equipment. You know, they can sense. I was just in a home inspection where the home inspector has, you know, infrared, so they can tell if there's moisture in the walls. He was able to tell and show that almost too much information because you're going to freak people out, that the insulation was falling behind the walls. Usually you can't see behind the walls. You have
No, of
no
course
idea
not.
what's
Yeah.
going on. You know, there could be bugs in the walls. You don't know. So it can sense, you know, see behind the walls.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
actually pretty cool, especially for investors that are about to do a rehab, right?
Right.
What do they always say? Like, oh, you always got to put like an extra 10% aside, up to 20, because
Right.
once you start tearing down walls, you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Right, exactly. You don't know what's behind the walls, right? Usually they're just, you know, doing oil tank scans. And so all of that technology has brought so much information to educate the buyer when purchasing a home. At least you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, very true. Talking
Did I
about
answer your question?
you did.
Okay,
You
okay,
did.
okay.
You really did. There is a lot of
I
technology. I
know.
didn't know if maybe your group or something specific has an app that you guys use or you give to your clients. That's what I was trying to get to.
Oh, okay. I mean, the clients, they're basically on, they're on, as much as I send them every single day, you know, information on houses, you know, you can't ignore the fact that they're on the realtor.coms and the Zillows that do a really good job to the consumer to let them know that ding, 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 a house in your price range just came on the market. You may like this. So you know, as long as you have that relationship and they come, you know, you have to have that open conversation and they come back to you with, let me get more information, because that information isn't always accurate. And then I take that information and, you know, help disseminate like, oh yeah, that's a great price, but you know, the house XYZ, you know, old roof, old this, old that, you know, you try to bring some intelligence behind what they're seeing on the internet.
Actually, if you want a side note,
Yeah.
if you want some technology that I have that I could share with you and we can brand it towards you, is we have an app that they can search and all they'll see is the properties. They can actually take a picture of a kitchen they like
Yeah.
in an area and it'll show all the kitchens that would look like that house. And so they don't have to go to the Zillow, and it's actually real live data.
Okay.
That once they like something, they can just click on it. You'll get the message and all that stuff. So I love
Yeah.
technology as well,
Yes,
especially little cool
absolutely.
toys like that. All right. You were talking about the NMLSs, everything that it could do. Talking about the National Associations of Realtors. Big lawsuit.
Right.
Changed business quite a bit. Talking about how you negotiate, you know, for the buyers and the
Right.
sellers and everything like that. How are you navigating that? How are you educating your team? What are you guys doing?
So, you know, at first, just like everybody else, we're like, what the heck is this? This is insanity. You know, I think more like you almost like got hurt when you're an ethical agent and you work so hard. There was just, it didn't make sense, you know, of what happened in one place with one situation created this lawsuit. You know, that's not how I conduct my business. But the good thing that came out of that is these conversations that you have with buyers now in a relationship with a buyer Can't tell you how many times, you spend time with a buyer and they just didn't get it, every single weekend. And then, as everybody has probably had, they go to an open house and wind up putting an offer in with a listing agent or, something to that tune, or a new construction, or not understanding. I'm a Zillow Premier agent, and you still every single day, they don't understand that when they click, A, they're not getting the listing agent. B, they are, getting into a relationship with an agent. They're in this uber instantaneous, let me click and want to see the house in 2 seconds. So these conversations as far as the buyer agreement and compensation, I think is only going to help our business, help the relationships, help the agents who know what they're doing, who work really hard and can present that to the buyer. The buyers are understanding it, the buyers are also embracing it. They understand that we have a relationship, we have a contract here together. 99% of, I don't think I've come across a listing where they're not offering out compensation. I had one where they were offering out a low compensation, like a 1.5%. And you have those conversations with the buyers that we may come across as sellers not offering out compensation, that we, have the opportunity to put it into the offer. Most sellers are, but we're going to be in the same playing field as every other buyer. It's not like they're not just offering compensation to us. They're not offering compensation to anyone. Yeah. And a buyer's agent needs to get paid. Everybody gets that. So we haven't really had anything negative on our team, and personally myself, with the buyer agency agreements. I feel like there is more trust and conversations that really should have been happening before you were going out with a buyer are happening, and it's forcing everybody for everybody to understand how I'm getting paid.
No, I mean, I thought it was just basically common sense. Hey, you're signing an agreement for 5%, and
Right.
this is what it's going to take to sell your home.
Right.
And you're splitting it, and that was it. But then, I don't know, some attorneys out there just decided to say, hey, we're just going to do a big lawsuit, and I can't believe what happened to it. How about with your sellers? Are you having a different conversation, explaining where the money's going to,
Sure.
or were they always familiar with it? Or
No, they weren't. I think the sellers were under the impression, I don't have to pay out a commission. There's no question that, like, that's all they heard. You don't have to pay. No, you never had to pay out a commission. But this is what it's going to come out at the end. Mm-hmm. Let's be in control of what we're offering out, is my conversation with them. No, you definitely don't have to pay out a commission. But this is what we're seeing is most beneficial. This is what, I'm a firm believer in offering out a commission. So I certainly give my input on there. I love the fact that a buyer agent does get to have control over their commission. They don't have to if you've ever taken out buyers and they want to see a house and, they love the house and the agent's only offering out 1% commission, geez, at least now we had this conversation ahead of time, and the buyer's agent who's given up weekends and given up their kids' softball games or whatever that may be, has spent probably thousands on gas, has the right to be properly compensated, and they control that.
You got to know your worth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I haven't seen anything negative other than the misunderstanding of it.
Okay, awesome. I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything that you would like to bring up, or any topic or anything like that? Anything you'd like to share?
What would I like to share? I guess it's just real estate it's extremely dynamic. Like for myself, and I'm sure, for yourself, like as a lender too, like this is every day you're learning, right? Mm-hmm. So experience does matter. Like I do not have one deal that's the same. I learn every situation, every client, you could sell houses in, a cul-de-sac where every single house is cookie cutter, but every client is not cookie cutter.
course.
So you're dealing with different emotions. You're dealing with different finances. You're dealing with different preconceived, thoughts of purchasing or selling. So my experience that I bring is invaluable. And I've learned that over the years, how important that is. I've navigated so many crazy situations, and that's where I get to help my team members. When we talk on a weekly basis, I actually like to share my mistakes for the week first.
That's cool.
Like, this is what I could have done better. If you guys come across this, I don't do everything perfectly. I learn, but I try to make myself better from every client, every single transaction, and I try to share that information. Learning from people. That's why I'm always listening to podcasts, because maybe I'll hear a situation I haven't been up against, but it really matters who you work with. And, there are a lot of great new agents out there as long as they're with a good office, a good mentor, a good team, a good manager. They all deserve the chance and the opportunity. I love the new agents. But they need help and they need guidance through the transaction. I think I would say in all my years' experience, your team that you have in place, like your attorneys, your home inspectors, your plumbers, people that are honest and reliable that you can trust and help your buyer or seller get to closing table means everything. And that took a long time for me to realize how important those people are.
Well, couldn't have said it any better than that.
Yeah.
And you're definitely, listen, this is honestly the first time we ever met, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you, your knowledge is invaluable just by this conversation. If I was you, I'd take a couple of clips of this conversation, put it on your signature page, have your clients listen to it, and they'll see, no joke, they're getting their money's worth. Danielle, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank
to everybody
you
else,
very much.
I hope this helps.